Hot 91, the soul of VA. I'm Alana Mercedes, and you already know what time it is. It's 12 p.m. on a Wednesday, so it's time for Club Creative Hour. Super excited about our guest today because on Club Creative today, we're talking with somebody who has literally helped shape Norfolk's creative heartbeat. So writer, artist, and cultural architect Charles Rasputin, also known as Orange Box Cutter, which I definitely need to know why you have that name, like where that came from. But he's played a major role in the birth of the Neon District, even giving it its name. From murals and public art to building spaces that keep creativity alive, Charles has been pushing the culture forward for years. So with the Neon Festival happening this month, right around the corner, we're diving into how it all started, what it means today, and of course, where we see Norfolk's creative scene headed next. So Charles, thank you so much for joining me for Club Creative today. I'm super excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes,
I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. You know, I've thought about, because obviously I had Carrie Ann here before, and she spoke a lot about you and the creation of the Neon District. So it feels really cool to have a piece of Norfolk's creative, heartbeat in the building with us today.
Thank you.
Of course, I have to ask you, number one, how did you birth the idea of the Neon District? What was the inspiration behind wanting to have that here in Norfolk?
So at the heart of it all, it's really teamwork. You know, I was a very, there were lots of folks that knew we needed something that sort of would give a bolster to the creative activity. Norfolk's always been sort of the art capital of the seven cities in so many ways. Not to say that there's not artists in every city, but like when kids in other cities wanted to go to where the pulse was, they went to Norfolk. Norfolk had the urban feel, the city feel. And there's a long legacy of teachers and artists from all these different generations that had their pulse in downtown, but they had never really sort of said, this is what's happening. And there was talk of an arts district, and I've always hated those declensions, like saying, this is the art neighborhood, because every neighborhood can be a creative neighborhood, in my opinion. So I said I wanted to make something that's not an arts district, but it's just a neighborhood that's everyone's neighborhood and could inspire all other neighborhoods, because every neighborhood is an arts district or a creative district. If you choose it to be and make it so. So the neon, new energy of Norfolk, I thought was a good call to consistently renew what could be happening in our cities every year, every decade. As long as we held on to that, we could not only talk about what's next for the creative culture, but we could also award legacy to folks that have built it for so long, because that was the one thing. As we came in the game, there were so many folks that were like, we've been here 20 years and blah, blah, blah. And, I wanted to honor them rather than to just be the new kids on the block.
Yeah.
Because I could feel their energy wasn't always positive.
I was wondering, was there pushback?
Grace is always the thing that I feel like gets through negative energy sometimes, especially with young people. I don't think older generations always expect grace from us, even though they might teach it to us. And as I've become the older generation in some people's eyes, I've tried to remember that too. But Neon was a lot of people that cared. I've always been really good at branding. That's one of the things I'm really proud of. So to give it this name that reflected something that could shine brightly, you know what I mean? But also had this cool, sort of retro vibe, but called to the future. Because even in neo-futurism art and stuff, we always use neon, even though it's kind of like an older technology now. It just was one of those things that immediately everyone said, that's it, that's the name. They had some funny names. The NAD, the No Bra.
The NAD,
the Norfolk Arts District. The No Bra was a really bad one to me, but it was the north of Brambleton.
Yeah,
so
but that's not quite.
Paths, And I said, first of all, no more of these crazy anagrams. And then I sat back in my chair in the meeting and I looked at this neon sculpture that one of my friends had put in the ceiling of our art studio, which is where Exchange is now. And it was a neon sculpture, and I just saw it and was like, okay, guys, for rule number 2, we're breaking the first rule. And that's sometimes my favorite thing in art, is rule number 2 is there are no rules.
Yes, and you are an artist yourself, obviously, so you've worn a bunch of different hats: writer, artist, community builder, curator. So how do you personally define what you do as a creator or creative as well, and how you put that into the creation of the Neon District, even with coming up with the name the way that you did?
I think it was, at that point, it was really about leading and as my friends at the Push Comedy Theater and the Neon would say, yes, and,
Oh, yeah, of course.
So often, and I would joke with Carrie and Rachel and the ladies at the DNC that they listened to the wrong part of the Destiny's Child song, and they're saying, no, 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 instead of yeah, 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 yeah. And that was to make light of the fact that quite often, especially once downtown and municipal entities enter into it, they're telling you no instead of figuring out how. And that's one thing I can say to the credit of the DNC and to Carrie and to Rachel and all the other people, because there's a ton of them, Mary Miller, is that they figured out how to start saying yes. And that was the thing that really helped us break through with the Neon. Is this group was hired from Texas, as they do. They give them a whole bunch of money and they come to our town and they point at the people that live here that didn't get any of the money and go, just listen to them. And we actually became the Harvard case study that year for
cool.
Better Blocks, which was the name of the group from Texas, of like how successful it could be if we just say no rules. Let's make this a walkable city. Let's make this a place that's bike friendly. Let's get rid of all the tiny little codes that we've made up why you can't do stuff, and make up reasons why you can do stuff. And we had a one weekend thing that became a couple of months long, and then we signed a lease on our building where Exchange is and Commonwealth Tattoo. It was a real big, it was an 80s furniture store. And then from there were some friends next door too that had collab. There some of the folks from WPA Architects. It was just the right mix of everyone. Some of the people that knew the cheat codes, and then some of the people, like my friends would always joke and call me the Kool-Aid man, first one through the wall might get the bloodiest, but he gets it done, And I was just, there's a lot of people that care about the rules and know how to navigate them, and I just said, I don't care about the rules, that kind of action inspires me.
Yeah, we're going to make it happen.
Outlaw art, outlaw culture have always inspired people, so we do it, but we do it with the care for the community instead of, just for a self-serving purpose.
Absolutely. And I think that shows all of the work that you guys did put in to create it. I'm looking at it now, 10 plus years later, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe this was ever not here. It just feels like such an important part of the community. Like, to me, it's brought a lot of people here. So when you were back there in the beginning and you guys had bought out that building, and I believe the first building that you had was Alchemy.
Correct.
Tell me about all that was going on inside of Alchemy and all of the creative endeavors and people that came out of that space.
Man, it's almost hard to articulate now. There's so much that was happening and so much that spread to all these other parts of the city. One of our early adopters and really big supporters was Chad Hugo from NERD. When we were doing fundraising, he would always show up with cool items, cool experiences, and cool ideas. The upstairs that's now Commonwealth Tattoo was like recording studios and artist studios.
Man.
So we had Very Rare, who was creating music for ASAP Mob and ASAP Rocky at the time. We're making music up there, and there's these cool pictures of Chad and them working on something in the upstairs. Downstairs they had built skate ramps, and
that's crazy.
It was raw art gallery that could just kind of be mobile and modular, and no one had really, I don't think, seen that before here. And we worked really hard to do it with very DIY processes. We would find available free items in wood and construct cool stuff. I mean, there was a lady with a beautiful mid-century modern house that was getting rid of a custom couch, and there's a 30-foot long L-shaped couch, and we put it in, all the weirdest items, but it kind of turned into its own aesthetic and very raw. I took out the drop ceiling, and you could see all this old sign painter style from the early signage. And when we moved on and got to create Work Release in the Texaco building with the Rudders, it sort of inspired that. We got to see what we could make a similar thing, but with some financing and some budgets, and that focused on new media art. And while I think Alchemy focused a lot on trades and how trades translated to art, I would always tell kids, you want to be a pro skater, that might not be in the cards for you, but if you know how to do concrete, know how to do carpentry, you can build any ramp you want. You can skateboard forever, and you never know where it might put you. I tell them there's 100, if not 1,000 people between Beyonce and Jay-Z and the stage, and they all have good careers, they have good benefits, and they don't have the burden of fame always.
Of being Beyonce and Jay-Z,
having to do all that extra stuff. They just get to experience the love of the stage and theater and pageantry of music. And that was our real focus with that, is to say, being famous shouldn't be your end goal. It should be to build this church that is music, that is culture and art, and to show them, and by them I just mean, I guess, the powers that be, is that if we treat our culture the same way that, and I would always say this at Work Release, if we treat it like a church, our guests act like it's a church, it becomes a holy space. We take care of one another. We make sure we're safe, but we're also making beautiful things that glorify why we're here. We all might not agree on how we got here or who we should worship for being here, but we were all created, whether or not you believe in a creator. And the way I believe to honor a creator is to create.
Wow, that is so beautiful. And that's honestly the meat of Club Creative. I love the way that you just described that, because that's exactly how I feel. You just translated my thoughts perfectly clear when it comes to that. And I think that, again, it's translating into the community. It's important to have figures like yourself that are able to see that, okay, the glue part is really important. It's not so much always about, even the output of the product as much as it is the community behind it and like the building of that product itself. That's super important. And of course, Club Creative is all about getting to know the person behind the craft as well. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We got to get to know Charles a little bit better here on Hot 91, the soul of VA. Hot 91, the soul of VA. I'm Alana Mercedes, and for Club Creative Hour today, of course, we're joined by Charles Rasputin, who is the heartbeat, if you would, or one of the heartbeats, rather, of the creative district here in Norfolk, and obviously a lot of other things in Virginia that we definitely need to get into. But Charles, like I said, you have done so many things, had so much involvement in different pockets of scenes that I honestly wouldn't have imagined. Like you said, you had to do with the Operation Smile puppet that kids get to see. You also had to do with, of course, the creation of Work Release, which obviously caused a lot of people to have the careers that they have now, including Masego, who was a student at ODU that I know a lot of us are familiar with. But you've just had your hand in so many different things. So I would really like to know what first pulled you kind of into this art and immersive media kind of realm. Like, what was it like for you growing up? What is it that kind of started off your love for this?
I think it was really funny because I grew up in Portsmouth, a neighborhood called Highland Park. It's not there anymore. It's where the casino is now. But it looks like a lot of our working class neighborhoods here in Norfolk. And at like 8th grade, I think my mom remarried and we moved to Virginia Beach, and I went to Cox High School. So I had this like kind of Fresh Prince sort of thing happen to me at the right time, where I go to where all these kids that are well connected and are super wealthy from a neighborhood that was predominantly working class and poor. And I still was the odd man out, you know what I mean? Even though I grew up in an all-black neighborhood in Portsmouth, now I'm like the one poor kid at the really rich high school. And I think that taught me not only how to like navigate difference, but also to respect other people when they feel outnumbered, and how to connect with them. And art's always been that thing. Like, I was a theater kid that didn't find the theater through the drama club. Like, I had this really smart teacher at Cox High School. She ran the Black Culture Club, and she was doing a production of Fences, August Wilson. And I was like, wouldn't it be funny if I had tried out for this play? And she saw I was talented. She made me Gabriel.
Wow.
Which was hilarious because it's a learning disabled black man, and they let the white boy play it, and it was great. I mean, the people laughed, but it also showed, I went to a high school where there weren't a lot of black and African American students in the drama club, and so they made the space for them, but then they still made space for me. And that kind of taught me as I move forward, like, that's what you need to do. If you don't look at your audience and it doesn't look like your city, you messed up.
Wow. That's deep. Okay, so how would you say that, those learning experiences, even being chosen to play that role in the production of Fences, how would you say that is translated into the work that you do now, like present day, even down, again, to the creation of the Neon District? Like, how has that affected your life?
I remember with the first weekend that we did it, this really amazing writer, artist, Michael Rao, came through, and Michael's... he was always ahead of his time, huge in radio early on, progressive radio. Now he's an older fella, and I see Michael is like this weird balance of sometimes like very forward-thinking punk rock and then a little curmudgeonly. And I saw Michael go, I just wandered around and was like, I've never seen the city like this. And at the same time, I've got kids that are 16, 17 years old doing the same thing, from a totally different side of town. And once everyone feels magic at the same time and they're like kind of soaked in it and immersed, that's like, I feel like the role of art and artist. It's easy to hang a painting on the wall and go, this is how I feel. How does it make you feel? And it's easy to make a film and, say, yeah, this is how I felt to make this. How does it make you feel? But when you can like create environments, whole neighborhoods, or just experiences, and that shifts someone's thinking, like you said, about where you live. You said you didn't always have the love and respect for where you came from until you really saw the power of art. And I feel like that's the role of it. Like we get to serve ourselves with art too, with our talents, but it's also great to like serve others. And I feel like a healthy balance of that is like really, that's what I learned early on. The good feeling inside, what they call cosmic religious feeling, that connection to the universe. Like,
cosmic religious feeling?
Yeah, that's what the philosophers call, like, I guess the feeling of a religious person when they feel like connected or filled with the spirit is cosmic religious feeling. And I mean, I've always firmly believed that, like I said, creation is how we honor whatever creator we believe in.
I can see that. Yeah, absolutely. Now, with having that kind of deep connection to art and to creation, I feel like there are certain times when, at least for me personally, you might feel a certain frustration when others don't have that same appreciation, or maybe just in trying to show others that same kind of feeling or evoke that feeling in them. So if you've ever felt that or have had any challenges with kind of creating that experience for others to understand kind of what's going on inside of you, how do you go about handling that? Or what is your process for showing people what it is you're feeling inside?
There's always that fatigue of creation, and maybe the audience doesn't get what you wanted them to get or see what you wanted them to see. I see folks all the time make a song, they're like, I worked really hard on this song, and they put it on Spotify, and it doesn't get the plays that they want or the engagement they want. There's also this other thing I noticed too, especially in like our younger communities, about intellectual property. Like some folks don't always understand intellectual property from the get-go, and they'll see someone do something and they just copy it. And sometimes the person that copies it, even 3 people copying down the line, is the one that it hits for. And that's another feeling that can feel tough as a creator too. But I think, and I touched on it before, grace, man. It's the one, if we talk about our history in the South didn't produce a lot of awesome things. We have great food, but Southern hospitality is the one thing I think we can be the most proud of. And with that comes grace. People always talk about virtue signaling now. A day is like it's a bad thing, and to me, manners have always been a virtue signal. It's to show you,
absolutely,
I care for you, even though you may be different than me. I may be different from you. We may have different customs. This is my custom, and it's to respect you, and I can try to respect your customs too. And to me, that's like what art is sort of like. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I love outlaw art and culture. Like I want, if I can make art and it makes you mad, and it makes you think, and then it makes you sad, and then it makes you happy. Like I did it. You hit the full spectrum, But there's also some people that just want to paint pictures of the ocean next to the ocean. They want to paint seashells, and that's cool too. I always say be a key master, not a gatekeeper. And like, the minute I think something's whack is the minute I just try to be curious about what inspired the person to do it. How can I steer them? If I really want to see them do something cool that I think is cool, how can I steer them? I would always tell my students that, like, once you get to figure out how the paintbrush works, once you figure out how the can works, the aerosol can, once you figure out how to use all these different tools, then you get to use other artists as your paintbrush.
Wow. I have to think about that. That's so interesting, because then I guess you're able to shape in a way and inspire people, or just allow them to see something different, which is what I think you're really good at.
Thank you.
Yeah, just allowing them to see something different. So that's cool. I really like that, though. Being able to extend grace, it seems to be a foundational thing that you believe in. So how does that show up in your pieces? Because I know you are responsible for some murals out here as well, that other people may not have even known that they've seen.
Yeah, I don't think I always achieve it. I try.
That's all you can do.
That's the beauty. There's one next to the Chrysler Museum. It's pink roses and vampire fangs.
Yep.
We wanted to paint this thing that was about like the power of femininity, but we also just wanted to do something cool. And I love darker imagery, but I also knew the pink roses would get it through.
That one's beautiful.
And thank you. Yeah, my friend Carl designed it, but very much around like one of my aesthetics. And Carl's a wizard. He lives in Vegas now. We've been working on some projects that we can get to out there. But it's really funny because that motif of sort of monsters is always hung in my work. Now that I'm writing and doing filmmaking stuff, my first feature I'm working on is a vampire western now. So it's like all of these things sort of continue through. And There's one right now. And I do feel like while we're talking about creative districts and art, we should mention the Vibe. I was really blessed as we were creating the Neon, the creators of the Vibe, my friend Charles and my friend Laura, they were standing in line to get into our events to see how we were doing the Neon. And now it's taken on its own life of its own. And they're in their 8th year, I believe, of the Mural Fest. And not one of my first murals, but one of my ones that I was most proud of was covered up this year by another set of artists.
Oh, wow.
But which is super cool. Like, I think ephemeral art is what gives it value, you know what I mean? I learned a long time ago that if you put and it's just like having exclusive releases in fashion, if you put a date stamp on when the thing goes away, it just makes it that much more valuable for people to see.
That's true.
But this was about, the sort of obsession we have with the military in our area for a lot of good reasons, but also not always, I've found people explain a lot of silly stuff away by going, it's the sound of freedom in Virginia Beach.
Right.
But we wanted to paint, the owners of the building said, we know they love the military, Charles. What can we do that makes them happy, but that is us? And it was 2 mentors of mine that taught me a lot about interior design. And I said, I think we should do some camouflage. A lot of folks in our military live in camouflage. Like our LGBTQ community has had to serve for years under the radar and hide. And to me, that was like this idea of gay camouflage was like something that I knew they loved. They loved the color play, the colorways. It related to them directly, but also this idea that art is our finest weapon, as we mentioned before. And that's what I named it, Art is a Weapon. And it was a peace sign and a heart and camouflage. And it was surrounded by all these other murals of warriors and first responders and snipers and, and I like the fact that, too, now it gets to be something else and take on another life.
Yes. I think that is the perfect example of using the art to, this is what you guys wanted, but it has a deeper message behind it. So I think that's another way that people's minds can be changed based off of what they're looking at, like based off the message that you're giving with them,
That's, I always laugh, like when someone's like, I had to explain to them what it meant, and that's cool. Like, I like a mix of both, you know? I love to hide an Easter egg in the work. I love for people to discover something later, but I also like for it to stand alone. And we got to do that with both. And one of the things I always tell folks, too, in our community, because we're so quick to paint a picture of someone in their uniform to honor them for their service. And I've known so many incredible artists that emerged from 20, 30 years of service in the military to become this, top-level creator. And I say sometimes the way that we can honor someone for their past service is to honor them as the human they are now. Not
Totally
necessarily
agree.
The uniform they served.
Absolutely.
And so the mural got to change its uniform.
I love that, Jim. And this is why we need people like you, I think, as creatives, or at least as leaders in creative scenes in this area, because that kind of mindset has the capacity to change, of course, our environment, but largely, I think, just the way that people think in the world in general. I really think that, especially, again, as it ties into the creation of the Neon District, having people like you as the forefront or as the head of these creative endeavors, it just has the capacity to just change the trajectory of the future. Or just the people that, and I see this must be
really
something you're
sweet.
super passionate about,
Yeah.
but it's so important. That, and I can tell it shows in your art, of course. It shows in the spaces that you've created and the opportunities that you've now afforded to so many people. Like, it's important, especially, I'm telling you this, coming from a girl who did not appreciate Virginia for a very long time. And the Neon District is where I first met you. Like I said, I got to tell the story real quick, because it was while I was in a band, and I remember my band was playing at Verva on Granby Street, and you walked in because you were like, I heard this music, and that's history. But that was in the heart of the Neon District, the Verva building.
I found some of the most talented people in my life just following what I heard.
That's insane.
Up the street, down the alleyway, that was a moment for me. There's a lot of talk sometimes that like, the Neon, it should be this, and there's a phone repair store. That's not an arts district, and to me, I can walk down there any night. I see incredible Black-owned businesses, woman-owned businesses, like Commonwealth Tattoo, Tender Heart Tattoo. I see some fashion staples.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? With dope clothing, a couple of really cool event spaces. The funny part is the Places like Exchange and I can't recall the names of some of the other ones right now, but they're actually following a really dope legacy because Stark and Legum is like almost 100 years old.
Wow.
And that's like the top end, like black-owned suit shop for years in Norfolk. So it's like they've followed in the footsteps of greatness, and it's so cool to me because I'm like, some of these businesses have been on here 80, 100 years, and then some of them have been on here 5 or 8, but they might be here for 20 more.
Exactly.
And it was a pass-through when we got there. Like, it was literally just us and a few sex workers at night, and we made quick friends and said, if you ever need anything, we got you, and they took care of us. And every time, that's the one thing about the Neon and about places like the Vibe, is I think if we get to be creative, we get to be artists in a space, we also owe to the community not everyone has that privilege. And so we have to share space and look after the folks that gravitate there because they don't necessarily have access to resources. And I think Neon's done a really wonderful job of that. It makes me super proud.
Absolutely. And we're celebrating the legacy of the Neon District with the Neon Festival coming up. So we definitely have to give you guys all the details on that because it's going to be an incredible one. It always is. So stay tuned. That's coming up on Hot 91, the soul of VA. Hot 91, the soul of VA. I'm Alana Mercedes. We have Charles in the building of the Neon District and to talk about, of course, now finally, the Neon Festival. It's going down this month. And if you've never actually been to the Neon Fest, then this will be your opportunity to take advantage of that because it's a great time in Norfolk. So, Charles, first off, for someone who hasn't ever been to the Neon Festival, how would you describe it? Like, what would you say it is?
I would say it's that one perfect, actually it's 2 nights, but 2 perfect nights of everything our city has to offer, every culture, and if you get to come and you see something that's missing, we invite you to be a part of it next year. But you get to see trap music, you get to see house music, you get to see classical music, you get to see theater performances. People don't realize the hurrah players in the Neon, they are this beautiful gateway that we have directly to Broadway for young people in our city. So often I've seen young people go from Governor School to hurrah players right to Broadway in their 20s, and that talent starts here. And I've seen the same thing with great producers, great rappers, great musicians, and that's what we really showcase tonight. We have some of the best cultural institutions in our city. We have the Chrysler Museum, we have the Scope, we have the Harrison Opera House, 2 of the finest tattoo parlors. Each one is programmed, Exchange. All those places do a little something special within their place. Sanctuary around the corner, the taco spot, all
Sanctuary.
The little nooks and crannies of the neighborhood get activated. Walk down an alley, check out some art, see just like what the potential is. And if you want to be a part of the neighborhood and then, not even at each festival, but just throughout the year, find your space. Like, that's what it's always been about. Is it's not only about what's happened before, but what's happening next. The new energy in Norfolk should be renewed every year, in my opinion. And that's the young people that come here to NSU and to ODU and to all these schools, but it's also the young people that are coming up in the neighborhoods adjacent. That was the thing when we started it. Everyone was like, what are you going to do about this neighborhood next door, talking about Calvert Square and Young Terrace? And I said, you must not understand the cultural economy that comes out of neighborhoods like that. And some of our finest artists, athletes, doctors, you name it, leaders, have come out of neighborhoods like this, and they don't always come out of Larchmont and Ghent.
Yeah.
In fact, check the track record. You'll find that the young people that grow up with sometimes toughest situations and not the same access to resources that wealthy kids do, they're built tougher. They go farther, And by the time we figure out that we don't have to work against each other and we all get to work together and each of our resources can be each other's, teamwork makes the dream work, as they say. And that's really, I think, the thing that art can teach us and places like the Neon District and the Vibe District.
Yes, I was going to say, I think that the festival, the district itself, of course, but the festival is a prime example of what happens when all of those businesses come together and create this really cool space for everyone to kind of come in and, like you said, see what the city's best looks like. So I'm really excited about that. And you said it's a 2-day festival, so that's the 17th and 18th?
17th and 18th, it's Thursday and Friday. We do that because there's so many other cool things going on in the city that weekend. We not only have the Stockley Gardens Art Festival that happens sort of during the daytime in Ghent, but that weekend's also a really special weekend, and we're honoring Timberland. for his contributions to music and to the city. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on. And I think that Saturday night he's performing at the Norva.
Yes,
so
he is.
There's a lot of really cool stuff going on, and there's a lot to see in all of our cities, but that's the weekend, I think, to be in Norfolk.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. If there's no other weekend I would encourage someone to visit, it would be this one. So for sure, make sure you're at the Neon Festival. I definitely will be there. And where can we find more information regarding the fest?
It's really simple. neonnfk.com, neonnfk.com.
Okay, love it. And of course, lastly, Charles, we talked a little bit about it off air, but being somebody that has helped to build the Neon District, that has had such just a massive impact on our community in general, as well as just the 757. I've seen a lot of change over the last couple of years as a result. So with people always having this idea of, this one big person from this area, like be it Pharrell, be it Timbaland, whoever, is supposed to come back to this area and kind of, quote unquote, I don't even want to say save us because we're doing so well, but they think that they're supposed to come and make this big print that's going to put us on the map, for lack of better words. But you have this idea that, no, it's really about the community that's shaping that. So what would you say to someone who believes that, it's something in the water that's going to make us, the big state that everybody wants to visit? Like, what would you say to that?
One of my pet peeves, when I would throw a large event, and we'd have really cool events Wednesday night, Friday nights. When I was a little younger, there'd be 1,000 kids that would come out, and it was blowing everyone's mind. Norfolk, Virginia Beach. Norfolk was actually scared. City attorneys were chasing us.
Oh, wow.
At the end of the event, someone would come up to me and they'd go, "Hey, what's going on after this?" And I would get so mad. I'm like, I just threw you this amazing party. You know what I mean? You just had a wonderful time. Why don't you tell me what's next? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we can do to honor folks like Timbaland and Pharrell and Missy and all the amazing people that have built this culture and continue to feed back into it, is we can show them what's next. We can make a place for them to come and relax and chill and say, look at how cool this group of kids are. Look at how cool Virginia is, and know that it's what they gave us, but also what we took from it and built with it.
I love it. That is excellent. And I think I already had a love for Virginia, but I feel like this conversation just made it even that much more because of, again, people like you who have made this a creative space. Like, it's just an awesome place to live. So I appreciate you and all the work that you're doing, that you're continuing to do in the community. I see the difference. It's amazing. And I can't wait personally to see what the next 5-10 years is going to look like in Norfolk either.
Thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
A few people know this about me, but I'm definitely a Spartan Legion super fan.
I love it.
So it's cool to be hanging out at the home base today.
Yes, of course. Well, you're more than welcome to come back anytime. But again, thank you for your contributions and for your thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, Charles Rasputin of an Orange Box Cutter. Where did the name come from before I forget?
Biggie song. Orange Box Cutter, make the world go round. Sky's the limit. And my friends always thought it was something more nefarious. And I said, well, like an orange box cutter, it's a tool, but it's also a weapon. A small, little, tiny hole can make a big difference,
You're doing it.
And, but I always loved that. Sky's the limit, that idea of all those amazing, famous artists just being little kids, the way the video was shot. And, Orange Box Cutter, make the world go round.
You're living up to the name. You're doing a great job with that. So perfect name. Ladies and gents, stay tuned. I'm playing more of your favorites on Hot 91, the soul of VA.